Have you bothered to find out what was going on in the Garden of Eden before Eve came along? In the beginning, all was perfect. Light danced with darkness, the stars obeyed, the waters shimmered with joy, and man, Adam, stood as the crown of creation. But what if I told you something went terribly wrong before Eve came along? What if the creation of woman was not plan A? What if we revealed to you what God saw while he came to visit the first man in the Garden of Eden? This is not the story they taught you in Sunday school. This is what really happened in Eden when God frowned for the very first time. Welcome to Deeper Bible Story. Subscribe to this channel. In the beginning, when light danced with shadows and the wind still smelled like heaven, Adam was God's masterpiece. Formed not by command, but by divine touch, his body rose from the earth, crafted like sculpture, but alive. Dust wrapped in glory, veins carried the breath of God. His eyes opened, and they were filled with wonder. He was the only creature that looked like his maker. The sun bowed to greet him. The stars stood still. Even the rivers curved where he walked, as if to feel the steps of this new ruler of earth. God gave him dominion, not like a king with armies, but like a father with responsibility. Everything responded to him. When he spoke, parrots repeated. When he whistled, lions lay at his feet. He named every creature. The one that leaps, kangaroo. The one that purrs and stretches like its royalty, cat. He was wise, sharper than anything we know now. His mind was a garden on its own, blooming with language and ideas. Angels marveled at his understanding. And God would come down from eternity, step into time, and walk with him in the cool of the day. Heaven and earth touched hands each evening in Eden. But then, God began to notice something. The signs were small at first. When he arrived, Adam wasn't humming anymore. The laughter had quieted. One evening, God found him lying under the fig tree, staring at the clouds. His hair was tousled, the leaves around the garden untrimmed. The grass was too high. Fruit fell from trees and rotted where they lay. The house he had prepared for Adam, the beautiful dwelling carved into the shade of the olive trees, was unkempt. The floor was dusty, and the water jar was empty. He had not watered the hibiscus. He forgot to feed the doves. The grapes were withering. God asked, "Adam, what happened to the sweet garden I gave you?" Adam scratched his beard, looked away, and mumbled, "I'll do it tomorrow, Lord." But God, who sees beyond the lips into the soul, saw the deeper truth. Adam wasn't lazy. There were many tasks that called his attention at the same time, and he was confused which to attend first. And he began to forget some tasks and procrastinated, and because he was alone, no one to remind him. He woke up alone, worked alone, returned home to silence. He had no one to cook for, no one to tell how his day went. No giggles, no shared stories, no waiting embrace. He began spending more time with the animals. He watched as the turtle doves built their nests together. He stared too long at the lioness cuddling her cubs. He even started talking to the goat named her Mimi. They shared fruits. He sang to her once. He noticed the male and female in everything. 2 giraffes drinking from the stream. 2 monkeys grooming each other in the shade. 2 turtles slowly inching across the sand side by side. But him, just one. Always one. Then came the moment heaven could no longer ignore. Adam had spent the whole afternoon tending to the animals. He came back to his lonely garden hut, sat outside with his knees drawn up, and watched the sun set behind the fig trees. A breeze brushed past, rustling the leaves like a whispered lullaby. 2 birds above him snuggled into their nest. They chirped softly, not for him, but to each other. And in that moment, Adam sighed. Not an ordinary sigh, but a heavy, aching human sigh, the kind that empties the soul and floats upward. A sigh that reached heaven like incense. God stood still. All of heaven hushed. And for the first time in creation, God frowned. He looked down at the man, the image of himself, slouched, surrounded by beauty, yet aching inside. and he said the words no one had ever heard before. It is not good. Creation had been called good, very good. Every tree, every mountain, every star, every wave. But this was not good. It is not good for man to be alone. Not in this way. Not when silence echoes louder than music. Not when fruit tastes dull because no one shares it. Not when laughter dies in a room with no answer. Adam needed more than breath and bone. He needed someone to come home to. He needed a reason to sing again. Adam never complained. That was not his way. He was strength without noise, dignity without demand. Even in his silence, there was power. But God watched, and what he saw began to trouble him.
The fig trees were heavy with fruit, purple, ripe, dripping with sweetness. Yet, Adam walked past them, day after day, untouched. Not because he wasn't hungry, but because, what is the joy of fruit when no one bites with you? Once, he would pluck mangoes and toss them in the air, catch them behind his back and laugh. Now he barely glanced at them. Joy had a bitter aftertaste without someone to share it with. The garden was still beautiful, lush, bursting, alive. The lilies danced in the breeze. The hibiscus turned toward the morning sun. But Adam no longer wandered wide-eyed or named new plants. He stayed near the riverside, elbows on his knees, skipping stones across the water with sighs heavier than the rocks. He began talking to the animals. Not naming, talking. He called the parrot friend. He taught it to say, "Good morning, Adam." The parrot obeyed, and Adam smiled, but it wasn't the smile of joy. It was the smile of someone trying to forget he's alone. He laughed with a goat one afternoon. The goat bleated back and followed him around for hours. Adam tied a piece of vine around its neck and called it Timmy. He sat with lions. He ran with gazelles and even told the squirrels stories as they gathered nuts. But his eyes remained distant, like he was searching for something that wasn't there. One day, he stared at the giraffes grazing under the sun. He tilted his head, watching how the male walked beside the female, matching her steps, bending when she bent, waiting when she stopped. The two moved as one, and for a long moment, Adam said nothing. Then he muttered, "You're lucky, Gina. He watches your back." The angels whispered in concern. This is not what we expected. Adam had begun to notice what the animals had that he didn't. They had pairs. They had rhythm. They had partnership. Even the crickets sang in twos. The bees shared hives. The turtles rubbed shells. The elephants locked trunks and walked like old lovers. But Adam? He clapped for them, cheered for them, watched them walk away, alone. The one who had dominion over all was missing something simple, something deep, companionship. And so God, the all-seeing, all-knowing, did not intervene yet. He watched. He waited. Sometimes the best teacher lets the lesson unfold slowly. Then one day, Adam did something strange. He gathered grass and leaves. He bent small twigs and carefully layered them beneath the almond tree. He looked around, cautious, and began to build something small and round. A nest, just like the birds. He sat in it, knees pulled to chest, rocking slightly like the dove he had seen nesting days earlier. He even hummed the tune the sparrows sang at dusk. He stared into the forest as if hoping someone would fly back to him. And that moment pierced heaven like lightning through soft clouds. God stood, and with thunder in his voice and mercy in his eyes, he declared, "Enough." The angels stood still. Creation held its breath because something sacred was about to happen. A shift, a correction, a gift. It is not good that man should be alone. Up until now, everything had been good. But this was the first not good. Not because Adam failed, but because something was missing. Something God had saved for last. And now, the time had come. Not to fix a mistake, but to complete a masterpiece. Until now, God spoke, and it was.
Let there be light. Boom! The heavens cracked open and radiance poured like a waterfall across the void. Let the waters separate. Swoosh! The oceans bowed and the skies rose. Let the earth bring forth, and at once trees erupted, vines danced, and flowers blinked their sleepy eyes at the morning sun. Everything until now had responded to God's voice with the speed of thought. But this time, God did not speak. He did not command, did not declare. He could have said, "Let there be woman," and the mountains would have echoed her into being, but he didn't. This one required touch. Not just voice, not just word, hands. This one required a pause in heaven, because she would be more than bone. She would be the echo of God's affection, the answer to Adam's ache, and the missing melody in Eden's silence. So God put Adam to sleep. Not just sleep, a deep sleep. Divine anesthesia. A hush beyond dreams. A hush that stretched across galaxies. The angels leaned in. The lion lay down. The wind held its breath. Even the stars dimmed for a moment. Then, with a tenderness only a creator could have, God reached into Adam. Not to the dust. No, he had used dust once. That was for forming the body. But this was for forming the bond. He passed the skin, slipped through muscle, drew out a rib, curved, strong, yet close to the heart. Not from the skull. She was not made to dominate. Not from the foot. She was not made to be trampled. But from the side, close to breath, close to love, close enough to be held. And there, in that sacred hush, beneath the tree of life and beside the river that never dried, God shaped her. With the same precision he carved mountain peaks. With the same imagination he painted sunsets. With the same softness he gave to doves and lilies. But this time, there was intention. She was not an afterthought. She was the finale.
The crown jewel. The final line of the poem. The exhale after a symphony. Her eyes were not just to see, but to be seen. Her hands, gentle enough to cradle life, strong enough to plant gardens. Her voice, the missing note in Eden's music. God smiled. He didn't call the angels. He didn't announce thunder. He didn't shout her arrival. He let her be. And then, Adam woke up. His eyes fluttered open, not to light, not to leaves, not to the familiar trees and beasts, but to her. She stood near him, still, silent, glorious. The sunlight bounced off her skin like gold on water. Her hair moved with the breeze, but her feet stood firm. The garden behind her faded because nothing else mattered. And Adam, the man of dust and dominion, who once laughed with goats and skipped stones across lonely rivers, looked at her. And for the first time in Eden, a man sang. Not a song with melody and harp, but a song from deep within, a song older than language. He said, This is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. It wasn't just naming. It was recognition. It was reunion. It was joy wrapped in words. And the garden listened. The parrots echoed his joy. The flowers tilted toward her like sunflowers to sunrise. And God, he smiled. Not the smile of satisfaction, but of completion. For the first time since Let There Be, the Creator rested not just in his work, but in their oneness. Because Adam no longer walked alone. God didn't just create Eve because Adam was lonely. No, this was deeper. He created her because Adam had become incomplete, a masterpiece missing its final stroke, a garden with sunlight but no sunset, a song stuck on its first note. Adam had work, but the work was draining him. He named beasts, tended the vines, swept the riverbanks with his bare hands, but it was beginning to show. His shoulders drooped at dusk. His eyes no longer scanned the skies with wonder. He stopped naming the butterflies. Work without companionship was slowly turning into burnout. The very dominion God gave him was making him heavy. The lion roared when Adam passed, the elephant bowed, and the birds perched near his feet, but none of them could say, "How was your day? Are you tired? Come and rest with me." Dominion without reflection was becoming pride. Adam walked through Eden like a king, but the crown weighed lonely on his head. He ruled the earth, but no one ruled his heart. And in the silence after long days, he often stared at his reflection in the still waters, not to admire, but to wonder. Is this all there is? Authority without intimacy had become a beautiful prison. God saw it. God felt it, because God, who is three in one, had never known isolation. He understood the ache Adam himself didn't yet know how to name. Adam didn't need a servant. He didn't need a shadow. He needed a mirror, not of his body, but of his soul. A counterpart, a question and an answer. A voice not to echo his words, but to challenge them. He needed a womb to multiply God's image, not just with children, but with culture, color, and companionship. Genesis 2:18, "And the Lord God said, It is not good for man to be alone." This was not a random statement. It was heaven's alarm. It was the first and only time before the fall that God looked at something and said, "This is not good." Not sin, not darkness, not even Satan, but loneliness. God knew what loneliness could do, even in paradise. So he created not just woman, but companionship. He didn't fix the problem with power, or more animals, or more angels. He fixed it with intimacy. The creation of woman was not just about biology. It was about balance. It was about oneness. It was about completing the picture of the image of God. When God made woman, he smiled again. Eve was not an addition. She was the exclamation point on the sentence of creation. She was not created from scratch, like the beasts. She was not made from dirt, like Adam. She was formed from a piece close to his heartbeat, so that her voice would soothe him. Her presence would complete him. Her eyes would reflect heaven. She was God's whisper to Adam's silence. She was God's "I see you" to Adam's ache. And when Adam saw her, truly saw her, something inside him stood up. Not his bones, not his muscles, but his soul. He stepped forward and took her hand, trembling slightly, like he was touching a piece of lightning dressed in softness. And when he did, Eden breathed again. The wind picked up. The trees began to sway, not from weather, but from worship. The river clapped against the rocks. The sun dipped low just to catch her hair in its glow. Even the parrots chirped a new melody, one that had never existed before her. Creation had been complete, but now it was alive. For the first time, someone understood Adam's laughter. For the first time, someone cried when Adam cried. For the first time, two people knelt before God, together. And in that moment, heaven smiled. Because what God made in Eve was not just a woman. He made balance. He made beauty with backbone. He made intimacy that looked like eternity. And when Eve spoke her first word, though Scripture does not tell us what it was, the earth leaned closer. Because now there were two voices in Eden. One rising like a song, the other like a harmony. Eve was new, but she was not confused. Her first breath had been the garden. Her first sight, Adam's awe-struck face. Her first home? Eden, wild, beautiful, untouched. Yet for all its beauty, everything was unfamiliar. The trees hummed names she did not yet know. The wind called her by spirit before it ever used words. And the animals, they stared, not in fear, but in recognition. She was woman, something creation had never seen and somehow had always been waiting for. At first, she didn't speak much. She watched. Adam walked with purpose, naming, tending, commanding. He knew the land like it was an extension of his skin. But Eve, she studied the sky. She listened to leaves. She knelt at flowers and whispered back when they bloomed. Where Adam moved with authority, Eve moved with wonder. And slowly, Eden adjusted to her. The lilies opened earlier. The deer came closer. The river flowed softer when she dipped her hand. Adam noticed. "You see things I don't see," he said once, his voice low. Eve smiled. "And you name things I didn't know had meaning." At night, they sat beneath the fig tree, fingers entwined, backs pressed to bark. They spoke of light, of stars, of breath, of God. And when Eve first laughed, the stars blinked twice. They were two flames. One burned bright. The other burned deep. And together, they were warm. But the garden had corners, shadows where sunlight didn't always reach, trees whose fruit they were told not to touch. One tree stood taller than the rest. It glimmered strangely in moonlight, as if made of glass and blood. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Adam didn't ask questions. God had spoken, and that was enough. But Eve was born after the warning. She heard it secondhand. "We must not eat from that tree," Adam had said. "We must not even touch it, or we will die." "Why?" she asked. "Because God said so." But Eve's mind was a garden of questions. And questions are the soil where curiosity grows. One morning, Eve rose before Adam. The birds hadn't sung yet. The mist was thick, curling like whispers between the trees. She wandered. Not far, not with rebellion, just with wonder. Her feet brushed dew. Her fingertips traced bark. And then she saw it. The tree. It shimmered. Not in sunlight, but in mystery. Its fruit hung heavy, almost pulsing. Red, bright, bold, unlike any other. She felt it before she heard it. A presence. Soft. Warm. Almost familiar. Then the voice. Not loud, but sharp enough to cut air. "Is it true that God said you must not eat from any tree?" Eve turned. Nothing. Just a serpent, curled on a low branch, eyes like liquid gold, tongue tasting the air. "No," she replied slowly. "We may eat, but not from this one. We must not even touch it, or we will die." The serpent tilted its head. Its smile was ancient. "Die? No, you won't die. In fact, you will see. You will become like God." The words slithered around her heart. Not because she wanted to disobey, but because something deep inside her, something not sinful, but searching, whispered back, "Is there more?" Eve stepped closer to the tree, but stopped. She didn't eat. Not yet. This wasn't the moment of the fall. This was the moment before, when desire met wonder and paused to think. And in that pause, the garden held its breath. Back at the fig tree, Adam stirred. He sensed it, like a chill in the bones. He stood, heart quickening, and followed the same misty trail, toward the tree, toward her. He saw her, standing before the forbidden, not touching, just staring. "Eve," he called softly. She turned, startled, not guilty, just caught in thought. "Why is it so beautiful?" she asked. "Because not all beauty is meant to be possessed," Adam answered.
They stood there, side by side, looking at the fruit. Eve reached out, not for the tree, but for Adam's hand, and together they walked away. That day. But curiosity had entered Eden. Not sin, not yet, but a seed planted deep in the soil of Eve's spirit. And even God, watching from heaven, said nothing, because curiosity was the cost of consciousness, and love must always leave room for choice. So the next time you hear that Eve was just a helper, remember, she was the missing piece that made Eden whole. Man needed her not just to survive, but to be fully alive. Because even in perfection, God saw the danger of loneliness, and that's why he made her.